All right, everybody, welcome to the final breakout session presentation of our college fair week. You are here for the college admissions parent orientation. We're so excited to have all of you with us. It is 6 o'clock, so we are going to honor your time and get started promptly. So again, college admissions parent orientation. This is one of our favorite events to do every single year for the parents of our district. I'm going to be doing some introductions in just a second, but let's go ahead and start off with some housekeeping items for this evening. So just to let you know, this presentation is being recorded. If you have to excuse yourself early, if you want to review this material later on, just know that it will be posted on our YouTube channel by the end of this week at the latest for your review. You'll also receive a copy of the slides. We'll share a resource folder with you at the end of tonight. So when you get a copy of tonight's presentation, you'll see that some of the slides have this little chain link icon on it. And that means that whatever resource or thing that you're looking at on the screen is a hyperlinked resource. So when you receive the PDF of tonight's presentation, if you click on it, it'll direct you to an outside source. So be mindful of that as you're reviewing the slides after today. And just keep in mind that this is one of many, many presentations that we offer as a team for the students of Capistrano Unified School District. So please check out our YouTube channel for all of our past events and presentations. It's just a treasure trove of information there. And of course, if you have questions, we invite you to ask your questions. Please use the Q&A function as it helps us organize our responses to you. The chat can get quite overwhelming and we might not get to your question if we use the chat. So please enter your questions into the Q&A, keeping in mind that some of your questions will be answered as we move along this evening. So please keep that in mind, and I'm going to keep moving us right along. Okay, I'm going to try to get us out of here on time tonight. So just to let you know a little bit about our team, my name is Breanne. I'm a college and career counselor with Futureology, which is Capistrano Unified School District's free college and career counseling program. We are a group of credentialed school counselors who have special experience in the area of college admissions. So we have a unique position in that we can speak to students in the area of college admissions, right, with past experience. So that's kind of neat. And there are 4 of us on the team and our coordinator as well. I'm joined here by one of my colleagues, Mrs. Nicole Rengifo. She's going to be managing the Q&A for us this evening as well. But we are data-driven. Everything we do is based on the needs of the district. We look at survey data and needs assessments, and we make sure that what we're providing to families is what you're asking for. So you can see us for support with one-on-ones, group events, presentations. We are at school sites providing workshops for students and a meeting with families, of course. So please keep that in mind in your planning process. And I'd like to introduce you to tonight's speakers, right? I'm one of them. I've already introduced myself. Again, I'm a counselor with CUSD-Futureology. I'm also serving as an executive board member for the Western Association for College Admission Counseling. I'm very honored to be a part of that board. And joined with us tonight, and really kind of the main event speaker in my mind, is Ms. Breanne Boyle. Breanne is the president and college advisor at BB College Prep. And Breanne is past president of the Western Association for College Admission Counseling. We're very fortunate to have her with us. She has so much experience and knowledge, and she'll be providing a lot of information on the funnest stuff for this evening. Okay, so Breanne, thank you so much for being with us. Let's go ahead and get started and talk about the agenda. And I'm going to kind of get us started, and then I'm going to pass it off to Breanne for the good stuff. Okay, so tonight's agenda. This is what we're going to be covering tonight as a group. We're going to start with a discussion of why we're here, obviously, right? Want to get a sense of why you, as the adults in these students' lives, are here to learn about college admissions. We're going to talk about the college and career planning process and what our recommendation is to families in regards to the sequencing of how we plan to prepare a student for college admissions. Okay. And then Breanne's going to go into the admission state of the nation. We're going to see what college admissions kind of looks like right now across the country. We're going to talk about college fit factors, about your role as parents and guardians and adults in the lives of these students. We're going to close out with some action items, some grade level action items that each grade level can be focusing on. And then we'll hang back a little bit for some Q&A as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the poll. What grade level is your student in? So what do we have here tonight, right? Survey results are coming in. I'll give you just a couple seconds to respond and I'll share the results, but it looks like we have a lot of junior parents with us this evening, which is actually quite typical of this event. So that's great. This is really good timing for all of you. I'm going to end the poll. So 49% of us are junior parents, followed by seniors, sophomore and ninth graders, and no middle school parents in here tonight. So good to know. Thank you for sharing that with us. This will be really important information for all of you, all grade levels. So this is going to be great. We have a great group with us. One other question that I have for you is I want to get a sense of what some of your concerns are as you're helping your students through this process, as you're thinking about college and career planning for your child. What are some of your anxieties or concerns surrounding this process? And thank you for responding so rapidly. And you can choose more than one thing. Beautiful. I'm going to close this survey in 3, 2, and 1. Awesome. Thank you. Here we go. So sharing the results with you, right? One of your top concerns is finding the right college, right? Helping your child find the right college. That makes sense. This is a college admissions presentation. So that lines up, right? But coming in after that, right, is paying for college, standardized testing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. What standardized testing looks like now, right, in the face of the pandemic and test optional and all of that stuff. So Breanne will be going over some of that later, but we will be kind of addressing some of these concerns tonight. And as far as funding for college and paying for college, we do have an amazing webinar coming up October 19th that I'll be plugging at the end, but we have a really special guest speaker for that event. So I do encourage you to go to that event as well. But thank you for sharing some of your concerns with us. We're hoping to kind of ease some of those anxieties as we move along tonight. So let's start with why we're here, right? You have students, children in your life right now who are going to be entering the college application cycle soon, process soon. Some of you are in it, for those of you who have seniors, right? So why are we here? A lot of us are feeling some fear and anxiety as we think about planning for college and what life will look like for your child after high school. This is completely normal. And, you know, obviously we have this sense of anxiety because the college admissions process is becoming more competitive, right? But that doesn't mean that there aren't thousands of colleges out there that are going to align with the needs of your family and of your student. And that's something that we're going to discuss today. And we're hopefully going to debunk the myth that top colleges, right? US News top 40, top 50 colleges are the only way to success, are the only way to prove success as a student in high school, right? That your student has to get into UCLA or to Northwestern to somehow prove that what they did in high school was worth it, or that it was, you know, that is like why they put in all that work. It's a myth. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but that's part of why we're here, right? Is we're all feeling a little antsy about it, which makes sense. And that's totally natural. But part of why we're here is to learn, right? And to ease some of that anxiety by being educated on college admissions. So the purpose of tonight is to learn more about the admissions process so that you can provide the best possible support to your student as they begin this journey for 9th and 10th grade parents in here. And then, you know, as they go into college applications, essays, all of that stuff. So we were driven here possibly by fear and anxiety, but the purpose of tonight is to give you the information that you need to be more confident in the process of supporting your child. So we are going to kind of shift this mindset, right, of fear, of acting out of fear, of acting out of anxiety, driven by what your friends' children have done or what your, brother or sister's children have done, right? Because I think as adults in the lives of these students, we want to control a lot of it naturally, because we want the best for them. And you're all here because you want the best for your children. We're here because we want the best for your children, right? But tonight we're going to kind of do an informal pledge to ourselves and to the group that we are going to resist the urge to take over completely, and to be driven by anxiety and fear and by myths and by rumors and gossip, right, that you're hearing in the world, in your community of other parents. We're going to try to give you data and information to make informed decisions with your child, to support them, right, and not to make decisions for them. We're here to kind of help support them in that process. So let's start with the college and career planning process before we talk about admissions, right? Before we jump into what admissions look like, what colleges are looking for, it's important that we all are on the same page about what this process should look like based on our team's recommendation. So typically, this is what the college decision-making model looks like in our minds. I think collectively as a society, a lot of us, when we think about college for our students, we're thinking, okay, you're going to start researching colleges right away. We need to see what's out there. And then we're going to figure out what major you're going to pursue, and then you'll figure out your career later on, right? That'll happen in college. And this model, right, is driven a lot by media, by friends, by what's being kind of said around us. It's really kind of fed into everything that we consume, because college is such a focus, right? Again, it's a college admissions webinar. I get it, right? But best practices, right, and our recommendation is to flip that model, essentially, right? So we have to think about shifting this paradigm a little bit. So this is our recommended decision model. So instead of starting with college, right, we recommend that families and students start with self-exploration so that students have an understanding of themselves and what drives them in this world, what their strengths are, what their interests are. It's important for them to develop the vocabulary to describe those things about themselves and to begin thinking about themselves and reflecting a little bit more on, their purpose. Nothing too crazy or existential, but just what makes them happy. Why do they do the things they do? Why do they pursue the sports or the clubs that they pursue when they're in middle school and high school, right? This is going to give them, again, that vocabulary and that understanding of themselves to move into the next step, which would be to explore careers, right, that align with their personality. So we really do want to start with that self-exploration component and then move into careers. So again, flipping that model that we were looking at earlier. Careers are going to come first, essentially, after self-exploration, aligning careers with what matches the student's strengths and personality and values. From there is where we can begin to explore educational pathways that align with that career pathway. And of course, we're not asking students to choose a career right now, but we are asking them to explore and become educated on the pathways available to them. So even if that is just understanding that they might be interested in a particular industry sector, that can really drive the research into particular educational pathways and majors, right? And that's where we direct students towards next after career exploration is major exploration. And then we start looking at training or college exploration. And of course, every student is different. Not everybody is going to college, right? Some students will be at this point exploring the training that they need to pursue the career that they need. And that might not involve college. But for a lot of you here, your students are headed towards that direction of a four-year university, right? And that's where this process begins, is after exploring majors. And then, of course, ultimately, the goal is career happiness and continued learning. We do want to emphasize to students that learning is continual. It lasts forever, even when you're in a job. As many of you know, there is, continuing education involved in a lot of careers. So we want to emphasize with students that learning is a lifelong process, and that might kind of make what they're learning in high school a little bit more relevant to them. So quickly, let's talk about a couple steps, right? We're just going to break this down a little bit more. I do want to give a lot of time for Breanne to kind of delve into college admissions. But to break down that roadmap a little bit more, again, step one is self-awareness. And we're talking 8th grade is a great time to start, right? 6th and 7th grade is a great time to start, but 8th grade, 9th grade is a great time to begin that process of self-exploration by taking career assessments, interest inventories, right? Values inventories, personality assessments. What you see here on the screen, the visual is of a Holland code, or otherwise known as a Risic test, right? A Holland code is a perfect example of a personality assessment that aligns students' personalities with careers based off of John Holland's theory of vocational choice, right? And so when you work with your counselors and us, we can recommend really great data-backed assessments that have been proven to help students in this process. But this process begins in 8th grade or even earlier if you wish. And of course, it goes into 9th and 10th grade as well. I work with a lot of juniors who've never done this before. Moving into career exploration, we're looking at 9th and 10th grade primarily. This is a great time to do that research, to start joining clubs that align with particular career interests, maybe joining robotics if you're interested in engineering, exploring classes that align with those career interests. We have such a robust offering of career technical education in the district through CCA, College and Career Advantage. These are all A through G approved courses that are career specific, taught by industry professionals, right? So this is a great way for your students to begin actually exploring exploring careers, while taking college prep courses to learn and to get credit and to improve their GPA, right? So this is a great time for students to begin that exploration in school and outside of school with clubs and extracurriculars as well. And then, of course, we went from personality assessments, self-awareness, to career exploration, to major and training exploration. Again, this happens 10th, 11th grade, can also happen in 9th grade. And this will help students begin the process of seeing what they have to learn to pursue the career that they're interested in, which will then, of course, drive their college exploration. And this process happens in that 10th and 11th grade timeframe. I'll be talking about a platform that your students can use in just a second that has all of this in one place. But then finally, we go into best fit college matching, right? And this is very much an 11th, 12th grade practice. So for those of you in here, and it's many of you, almost half of you, who are parents and guardians of juniors, this is the time for that. And it is fall, so you can begin with career exploration right now, and going into spring, we'll be starting that conversation about college fit. And that research is really, really important. And we'll have so many other events and resources to talk specifically about how to search for colleges, but just keep that in mind as a timeline. These are some resources that we'll share with you after this evening. It's linked. The primary one I want you to pay attention to is californiacolleges.edu. It is a one-stop shop for absolutely everything that I just discussed. Our district has paid for this access for all of our students to be able to log in and have their transcripts uploaded into the system so that they can see how far along they are with A through G matching for the UCs and Cal States, and to see where they are for graduation requirements. They can launch some of their college applications from this by senior year. So that's going to be an invaluable resource for you. So pay special attention to that particular resource. And I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Breanne for the fun stuff, the stuff that you all came for. And we're going to start by talking about college admissions and what that looks like right now across the country.
All right. Well, I don't know. Gosh, I feel like that's a heavy burden to say on the fun stuff, but I think college admissions is always the thing people want to know about. So I like this little pie chart to start off when talking about college admissions, and I think it's just a good visual for folks. So really the main takeaway from here is not that my pie chart skills aren't perfectly mathematical, but that most of the colleges in the United States are accepting at least half of their applicants. That's that big blue part. So most of the colleges you apply to are accepting 50, 60% or more of the people who apply. And then there's about 100 or so schools that are in that 30 to 40% of admit rate for their applicants. And I think that that's important to know because people talk a lot about, schools aren't admitting everybody, and it's really just the same schools that people are talking about. And then you see that teeny, teeny, tiny little sliver. There's probably about 30 to 40 schools that are accepting less than 20% of the applicants. So I show this to you because I think it's just a good visual, like I said, to realize that most of the colleges out there are accepting most of their students. And I want you to go into this college admissions portion of this presentation thinking about the fact that this is good news. Most of the college admissions stuff is good news. You will have options, and we're going to share with you how to build your lists and everything so you have some good options. So, like I said, the bad is that there's about 40 highly selective schools, and anything that's considered highly selective are schools that you should consider reach schools. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So the takeaways really are create that balanced list and that you can have a great college experience really anywhere you go. So we're going to talk a little bit about what colleges are looking for in this next one. So what do you think college admissions care most about? So these are the pieces of an application. So we're not going to do a poll with this unless we have one, but the idea is to think about what do you think colleges care most about? What are the things that you think matter the most? What do you think is more important than the other thing? So maybe jot that down or think about it in your head. And then we're going to show you the importance of that. So we can probably go ahead and show that. There you go. So you can see as they pop up, this is an order of importance to colleges when you apply. So let me explain that. The reason why we list them in that order is classes talks about rigor. So that's the actual classes you're choosing, classes you're enrolled in high school. And then grades comes next. And grades is very specific because I'm not talking about GPA. Grades is something that colleges are actually paying attention to because every college will do GPA a little bit different. Some schools will do unweighted, some schools will do weighted. So grades are what you should watch. Test scores, if they're looking at them. So if that's a piece of the application, that's the next in line for importance in the academic stuff. And then rank if your school does it. Not every schools do it. I know that this district does. So that'll be a part of it, but it's the least important piece. And then all those other parts are more about the personal side. So your demonstrated interest in the college, recommendations, essays, activities, any interviews if those are required. Those all kind of land around the same spot or the same piece of interest on the application. And you'll see that some schools will have an academic portion to their application, and then some will have that personal side. Some schools won't even ask you about any of those things labeled as number 5. And it's pretty easy to tell because they won't ask you about essays or activities or anything. And then that means they're only using the academic side as part of their admissions. And then you'll see lots of schools will ask about these other pieces so that they can find out more about who you are and the context of the classroom and all that good stuff. So let's talk about the types of college admission. There is holistic review and then that academic eligibility index review. So talking a little bit about what I was mentioning before, that holistic review is going to take everything into context. They're going to look at your grades, at the classes you're taking, any tests if you send them, which includes AP scores, IB scores, CLEP and subject tests aren't as popular. SAT subject tests probably won't affect you guys because it's something that ended a few years ago. But if you took those maybe in freshman year, that might come into play. Extracurricular activities, personal statements, which would also be the college essay, letters of recommendation, which would come from teachers or from counselor. I know we had a question in the Q&A a little bit earlier about letters of recommendation. So when I reference letters of recommendation, know that I'm mostly talking about teachers. So teachers will be the ones that will give the main letters of recommendation to explain how the student is in the classroom. The counselor's school report is also important and involved, but that's typically what I'm referring to. And then there will be schools that'll just look at your academic side or your eligibility index, which means they will usually have an algorithm that says, hey, we have an index number that we need you to hit in order to be admitted here. Iowa State's a good example. The Cal States have something similar. And they're only going to use your grades, maybe a test score, and maybe course rigor or sequence that you've done. They're going to look at that and put that into a literal math equation. And most of them will post those things on their website if they use it. And you can plug your pieces in and find your eligibility number. And maybe your eligibility number is above what they say the base eligibility number is, which usually means an automatic admit depending on the school. I say that because the Cal States And they also have an eligibility index, but it's not the same as admissibility. The more selective the school, the more that you have to get higher in that eligibility index. Don't stress about the index thing. Honestly, don't go home and think you have to do math equations around this. I mainly wanted to show you that there's two different types of college admissions, one that just looks at numbers and one that looks a little bit more about who you are. So let's talk about the academic side. There's different parts to that. Main part that they're looking at is course rigor. So we talked about that. So that can be different things for different students. They want you to challenge yourself, and you can challenge yourself in different ways. For some students, that's just taking Spanish 3, right? Maybe you don't love a language, you got through Spanish 2, but you say, I'm going to push myself to get that one more year. So I have that third year of a language that's more than what's required. Maybe for another student, that's taking an AP course in senior year. There might be another student where that means taking AP courses starting in sophomore year. Don't push yourself beyond what you can handle, but colleges do want to see that you are doing more than what is minimally required. So you push yourself where you're strongest. I was someone who really liked English. I did well in AP Englishes and honors Englishes in high school. I took AP chemistry and got a C. Not my jam, not something that I should pursue. So know that you should push yourself in the things you're good at and make sure that you are keeping a good balance of grades and that rigor, because you see that that's the next thing they're looking at is the grades you get in each individual class. So you want to try to find that balance. I get the question a lot of, so is it better to get an A in a standard class or a B in an AP or honors? My answer to that is always. The best thing to do is to get an A in an AP or honors, but nobody ever asks that question. They always want to know, can I get that B or should I get that A? So the answer to that is, based on the things I've been telling you, you should get the B in the harder class. If all of the other things are removed and those are the only two pieces we're looking at, colleges would rather see you challenge yourself, even if it means you get a B, than to take the class for you that was super easy and you just aced it and got an A. A student who gets straight A's but doesn't challenge themselves is a very different student academically than a student who might have a few B's in there, but they took some APs and honors. And again, for every student, that will be different. And not every college is it going to matter that much that you took honors and APs. So kind of look at where your academics are, where your strengths are, and as you're building your college list, that stuff should come together. Love of learning is something that, again, you can show with challenging courses or taking courses in subjects you really like. I've had students who've taken college courses and things that they might be interested in, perhaps because they couldn't fit it into their schedule at high school or for whatever reason, but pursuing things they're interested in doing. Your senior grades do count. Those will be taken into account for colleges depending on the admissions deadline. So make sure that you're still keeping grades. Even if you've been admitted, your senior grades will still count. The colleges are going to ask for follow-up grades, final transcripts, and they will admit you conditionally based on your senior grades. So that's another point that people bring up a lot is that, senior year, senioritis can take over. You don't have to do well, which is not true. So love of learning is more important than your numbers and your GPA. So showing that love of learning, of pushing yourself, taking an extra class, maybe you really like science. So senior year, maybe you have the space to take anatomy and physics because you really love doing that. Don't just say, well, I only have to take 3 classes to graduate, so I'll just do that and then I get out early. Take that extra class and show the college that you're really pursuing things you're interested in. The more selective the college, more important it is to show that. And there's ways you can do that in your activities as well, but you have a great place to do that in your classes. You'll see the letters on the side of that chart. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to address those. So those are A through G's. You've probably heard that before. Those are the sections or the types of classes you can take, and you'll have requirements to fulfill in order to graduate in California and be eligible for UC and Cal State, as well as other colleges. So, all right, let's talk about some activities. So what does it mean to be involved in activities? Well, it can be anything. Your activities should be things that you are interested in doing. Don't just join clubs to join clubs. Sometimes it's helpful to know what colleges are looking for in the actual application. Right before this, I was actually reviewing a student's application with them. I had a meeting earlier today too, where we were reviewing applications and getting ready to have stuff ready to submit. And the way that it's laid out is the activities listed that you do. The college also asks you, what are any leadership roles you have in it, or what is your role in it? How many hours per week and weeks per year are you doing that activity? So if you join a club to just join a club and you participate a few hours a year, that's not really something that's making an impact, right? So you see that next point says invest time and effort. So make sure it's something you really want to do. I have seen some very strong applications and students who've gotten into Ivy League schools and very selective schools who only have a few activities. They don't have to do everything in the world. The idea is they found things that were interesting to them and they really dove into those things and made an impact. So colleges are looking for students who find their passion and really go deep in the passion. So those pointy kids, not the well-rounded kids so much anymore. Hobbies can count too. So, think of the things that you really like to do. If maybe that's video gaming, maybe it's, something, maybe you're a skateboarder or a surfer. How can you do those things and impact others? I think it's fine to, pursue sports and things on your own. One of these days, I mark my words, you'll be able to put video games down as an activity. We're not at that day yet. But if you like doing video games, how can you do that? Maybe you can manage raids with your friends or get on and be the one that runs the Discord chat for everybody that's doing the video game. You can do things that make more of an impact. And you'll be able to use that application and essay and all of that stuff to show all of your passions. So just make sure that you're getting into the thing that you actually enjoy. This next topic is sometimes a little bit painful for folks. Essays. Who likes writing essays? I was a creative writing major, so I actually do, but I think I'm kind of I think I'm an anomaly here. I don't think most people enjoy sitting down to write an essay. And having worked with now probably 400 or 500 students in the 10 or 11 years I've been doing this, I can tell you that most students are intimidated by writing a college essay. Most of the time, the essays that you're writing are for English class, right? Or for history class, something in school. And those essays are analytical, they're really academic. The essays you'll write for college will be totally different. These will be about you. They will be personal, which is also why they can be hard at first. So a couple of tips that we say are, don't try to impress the admissions folks. When you're writing your story, it's going to be about you. They just want you to be honest. Tell them who you are. Tell them about something you're passionate about. You want to own that story so that it's a story nobody else can tell. So for example, maybe your biggest passion is soccer. Totally fine. But they're probably going to get other soccer essays. So how can you make that your own story? Think about the things that make that thing special to you. What are the things you've loved about soccer? Maybe you have a special, jersey that you keep, on your wall from your favorite soccer player. Maybe you learned a special skill. Maybe you have a special relationship with your coach where they're, teaching you a skill that was tougher for you on the side. So you will have details that will make it your own story. And that will let you also give new information. So it's not just repeated on the application. Don't just write an essay about your sport that just tells them, I did soccer. That's going to be on your application in your activity section. So how can you give them new stuff that's not repetitive? And it should sound like you. So parents, honestly, since you're in here in this room, I'm going to tell you one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to parents is don't read your student's essay and don't try to get involved in it. For a couple of reasons. One, I can tell pretty quickly when a parent has jumped into an essay, which means an admissions person can as well. But also you're trying so hard to make sure they put the best things in there, when really what you end up doing is pulling some of the personality out. You don't do it on purpose. You love them. You want them to sound the best they can. But a student needs to sound like them. And some of the best topics, I'll just give you a couple really quick, that some of my students have talked about have not been essays that sound impressive or sound fancy. There was an essay a few years ago, one of my students wrote about them being a good hugger, which was great. It was an amazing essay. I learned so much about that student and how they interact with their friends. Another one, a student wrote a whole essay about macaroni and cheese and how they were trying to learn to make macaroni and cheese and make the perfect recipe with their family. But I learned a lot about who they were in the home and about their family and the things that they love to do together. Someone else wrote a story about their job at a boba store. Also, you learn this whole other side of them that you don't get to see on the application. So don't feel like it needs to be just a list of all of the most important things you've ever done. It definitely needs to sound like a teenager's writing it.
Right. One of my colleagues read a really good essay for the UCs about a student who was super proud of his sandwich building ability.
Yes, I love that.
And it sounded amazing because he was so proud of, building the perfect sandwich for a customer. It was awesome.
Yeah. And to that point, like, what a unique story. And it doesn't mean that everybody's essay has to be unique or funny. Don't feel that pressure. But I want everybody needs to kind of shake it off a little. Your topic can be just about something that you think is really fun. Maybe you love making sandwiches. And, and then what ends up happening is that admissions folks learn more about you. They learn about maybe your sense of humor. They learn about, your passion about sandwiches. It's an interesting essay. It grabs them. When you're just trying to say, oh my gosh, I need this to sound like another resume, but in paragraph form, you just end up sounding a little bit boring. That's just the reality. So
Agree.
now I want to read this essay about sandwiches. So test scores, always a little bit of a stressful topic. So we'll talk about it a little bit just so you understand the landscape we're in now. But test scores, really what happens is that for the very selective schools, I'm talking about those with a 30% admit rate or less, especially those, that includes all the Ivy Leagues, that includes, Stanford, that includes the MITs of the world. For super selective schools, test scores will not help you get in, but they can keep you out. Meaning that if you have a 1450 or 1500, that is an amazing test score. That will help you get into most of the colleges in the United States. That would be a great test score to send. But Harvard, they get mostly 1500s and 1600s, right? But they have so many great test scores that you getting a good test score won't be the thing that will make you stand out in the applicant pool. However, if you're not sitting up there with those test scores, it can be something that can keep you out of those schools. So mostly with test scores, be prepared, lots of options to be prepared. You should consider these things when you're looking for college. Make sure you know exactly what tests are required. Make sure you know the average scores. We'll talk about that a little bit more when you're list building, and then how they use the scores. So let's talk about test optional, because that is the big piece here. And this is how schools are using scores now. You'll see a lot of these terms. So test optional, you can send an ACT or SAT if you choose. And when we're talking about testing and test optional, we're referencing SAT and ACT, not AP, IB scores. Those are different. Those are additional things that you'd add into the application, but don't come into play in admissions in the same way. So optional, you can send an SAT or ACT if you choose. It will not hurt you in admissions if you do not send it. So typically I tell a student you should send the score in a test optional school if it's at your academic level or above. Then that's a good reason to send it. If you feel like it doesn't quite represent who you are academically, totally fine. Don't send it to a test optional school. Test blind or test free is the term most people are using now. Colleges will not look at the SAT or ACT at all. Even if you send it or report it, they will not use it. For example, the UCs and Cal States currently are test free. They will make a decision around 2025 to see if they will change that. But as of now, everybody who's in this room here, I think learning for the most part will still be under the test-free admissions for UCs and Cal States. So make sure you're checking each school and see what their requirements are. Fairtest.org has the test optional colleges listed. They also list how the school will use it. So test optional doesn't always mean test optional for both admissions and for scholarships. And we can all talk about how that's irritating, because it is, but you should go in with information. So go to fairtest.org, look up the schools that you're considering applying to, and then look at what they say they're doing with the test scores. There will be an indication of whether or not they will use them for admissions or whether or not maybe they need them for scholarships. So make sure you know those things going in so you understand what you have to do for each school. So generally, do you send a score to a test optional school? Like I said, if it's additive to your profile and it helps boost it, yes. If you don't think it will, just send in the rest of the stuff and ride on that. So generally, what do you choose to do for SAT versus ACT? So think about this, which test is better for you? You can take a practice test of each of those. Futurology offers them all the time. You can see there's an example there, but they have them all the time that you can take free tests, figure out which one is best for you. The best way to do that is to just take one of each and find out where your score is. And then you also have an understanding of how you felt during the test. And then decide whether your score will add value to decide if you're going to do test optional or not. If you are going to send it or you're going to take more official tests, you can decide to prep or not to prep. You can decide how much you want to move. We have an example down there. So like there are different types of test prep options. You could get, say, a book, get one on Amazon, self-tutor. I think that's tougher for most people, if I'm being honest, but it is the cheapest way to go. You can take a class at lots of test prep places. I think if you're wanting to move about 50 points on an SAT or one or 2 points on an ACT, you might be able to do that with a book. If you want to move about 100 points on the SAT, or sorry, I meant the ACT. I'm not sure if I misspoke. So 50 points on the SAT, 1 to 2 points on the ACT. If you want to move 100 points on the SAT or 2 or maybe 3 points on the ACT, you probably want to take a class or a course. A tutor is going to be more like that 150 point bump on the SAT and 4 plus points on the ACT. So know where you're testing and then look at the schools and their average score and see how far you are from that to decide whether you want to prep. Lots of students may not need to prep based on the schools on your list. If they're test optional, maybe you don't even want to spend the time and money on doing that. And I think it's nice that more students have that option now that we have more test optional schools. Okay, so now you know the pieces of the application, right? We've got your grades and your test scores and your essays and your activities and all that stuff. So let's talk about college fit. So I want you to look at this number. 59.7% of college students graduate within 6 years. 40% of all students are graduating in about 4 years. Within 6 years, 59.7% are graduating. Why aren't more graduating? Because of fit, right? So fit can make a difference here. Often this can be because of poor fit, which is why we're going to talk about how important that is. So let's talk about why fit matters. Rankings are not an indicator of college quality or positive outcomes. So that's something you should be aware of. Just looking at a ranking of a school does not tell you if that's a school that's going to fit you. If you just looked at the rankings, you'd be missing so many nuanced pieces about the way they teach, the way they do research at that school, the way the social aspect is. So make sure you're looking at other things. College selectivity is not a reliable indicator of student learning or job satisfaction. So that's also something to keep in mind. Engagement in college is more important than where you attend. Students who can go to a school that fits them tend to be more successful within that college, meaning you're getting better grades, you're getting more involved, and all of those things matter more for job placement, graduate school placement. This is why the fit matters. There have actually been studies on this, on to see if ranked schools will make students more successful. And there is zero evidence that the name or prestige of a school you attend directly impacts outcomes, income, or success. I feel that I need to get on a t-shirt. So let's talk about the different pieces of fit. Social fit. So, okay, think about what you like or don't like about your current high school. The social fit is the environment, not just, so set aside academic, we'll talk about that, but what's the school like? What are you going to experience when you're there? What kind of activities do you like? Do you like big, loud sporting events? Perhaps a larger D1 college like CU Boulder would be a good fit for a student who likes that. Do you like attending plays and musicals and being involved in arts programs? Perhaps a school like Columbia College in Chicago would be a good fit. And both of those schools would be very different. I don't know that the same student would be happy at both of them. So you need to look at things like, the student and staff ratio to see, how much support they offer. Do you want to be at a school that has lots of residential housing nearby so that you can just pop onto campus and maybe interact with students there? Or is it a commuter school and that actually works better for you, for your budget and the way you want to be involved in your school? Look at the Career Center and the mental health offerings. Those things are so important to make sure you have the support that you need. Do you want Greek life with sororities and fraternities? Do you need to have certain interest groups that support your cultural or religious backgrounds? Those are really important things you should look at as well. So think about what you want, write that down first, I think, before you start looking at colleges. Think about the social fit. Think about the things you enjoy at your high school or the things you wish you had. And then think about what speaks to you. Do virtual tours and look at college websites to see what pops out to you. What do you notice and what do you connect with? Make notes of those things and look for those things when you're researching. And these are good examples of pictures, right? So we have what Boise State up there with that blue football field with everybody running, everybody's so excited. Do you want that energy? Is that something you need to have every week? And if you do, that's fantastic. Look at schools like that. Do you love the kids talking in that quad? Do you want to have that really tight academic support where that everybody's going to nerd out about the same, English literature book that you read? That's a very different school potentially. And then of course we have this picture of the library. I'm guessing that's University of Washington, but I might be wrong. But a lot of
Chicago.
It's Chicago. Okay. There's always like one building at a college where they take you on a tour because it looks like Hogwarts. So every school has like some building that looks kind of like this. But look at what kind of support they have for libraries and research and all of that, if that's something you're interested in. And then we have the money part. So I like to talk about what makes a college a good fit. And I think it's a couple of things. One, you can get in, right? So there's a couple pieces. You have to be able to get in there. They have to have what you want, which is all the stuff we're talking about, and you have to be able to afford it. That's what makes a good fit college, that you tick all of those boxes. So can you afford it? First, don't be scared off by the sticker price. You will see a general price, but that's not necessarily the price you will pay. Colleges have lots of programs for financial aid, and all of that can be different for students. What you should do is Google the net price calculator. So Google that term, net price calculator, and the name of the school. Every college is required to have this. It is a calculator where you can put in information about you, your GPA, some of the things you're involved in, the things you're interested in, and it will give you an idea of the kind of money or aid you might get. Remember, it is just an idea, but it is wise to do this with every college you are considering. Academic merit scholarships are great. You get money for good grades. Your likely schools, which we'll talk about in a second, are more likely to also give you merit money. Reach schools will basically say, our gift is we have accepted you. Now you may write a check, right? The more selective the school and the more of a reach it is for you, the less likely you are to get merit money. But there are different types of aid. Loans, as you can see, are money you have to pay back. Work study, you work and you earn money as a job, but you don't pay back. It's also more helpful when filing financial aid to have a work study job than a normal job. Grants, you don't have to pay back, free money, and scholarships, you also don't have to pay back. So you have a couple of options there. I know Futureology has some really great resources for additional information on financial aid as well. So once you've hit that, let's talk about this last piece, and we'll talk about the balance of the list. Academic fit. All right, you also need to go to college to get a degree, not just enjoy the football games and make sure that you can get a scholarship. So what type of learning environment are you successful in? Do you do better when you know your teacher and can contribute to discussions in class? That's me, I'm that person. You can clearly, I'm a talker. I like to have discussions in class, but maybe you're the type that learns better by listening and taking notes. Some people actually learn better by doing that. Look for your academic fit in the colleges you're looking at as well. Look up what type of academic support they offer. If you have a learning difference or if you're neuroatypical, you need to see if they have those kinds of support systems for you on campus. Lots of colleges do, but it's important to understand what that is. Look for job placement rates and if they help support you in finding internships. Some colleges are a little bit better at that. Some do it in certain areas and some have a broader reach. Look at the college's retention rate. That is, and you can Google that, retention rate with the college. That is the percentage of people that return that second year, their sophomore year. This is a great indication of students who felt supported and connected at that college. And if you see a really high retention rate, the chances are they're doing a good job in keeping those students supported. And then think about things like, are you interested in honor societies or honors programs? You can often have some academic advantages in those programs if they are a good fit. So those are all things that you should pay attention to when you're looking. Okay, so let's talk about balancing, and then I will toss it back over to my colleague so she can give you some more nitty-gritty details. So keep these colors in mind. We're going to talk about academic fit and credential matching and all of that stuff. So remember that image. All right, so credential matching is so important for the college list building process. We want to make sure that families that we work with have a clear understanding, and often the students who do feel like college application season is not as stressful because you'll have options. So if you apply to a balanced list, you will often have more schools at the end of the process that you've been admitted to, and typically more aid as well. So look at the average admitted GPA test scores if you are testing, typical rigor of admitted students, and that overall profile, then compare it to your own stats in those categories. If you are well above the college's stats, it is probably a likely school. If you are in line with it, that's where we'd call it a target. So you can see we're kind of like green means likely. So what I would consider with likely schools are, you are likely to get into them. I always tell students it's never a slam dunk. I would never say, yes, I guarantee you'll get into that school, but a likely school you should feel pretty confident is a good option. And then those target schools are ones that you look in line with the students that they admit. They might not admit everybody that looks like that, but you're pretty in line with the numbers on their stats. If you are below that number or those credentials, or if that school honestly has an admit rate that's quite low, like less than 30%, it's going to be a reach school. Some schools are reaches for everyone. If a school admits only a third of the applicants it sees, it's a reach. Even if you meet the credentials for that school, that is not a good number, or that is not a good, it's not a good bet, right, to make if they're only admitting 30% of their applicants. It might be more reasonable reach, maybe than one that admits 12%, but it's still going to be a reach. So this is our recommendation, a well-balanced college list. When you are looking at your list, you should kind of follow these numbers. Reaches 2 to 3. That's it. That's what you should do. You should aim high. You should aim for the schools that you love, but you should not fill your list with them. 4 to 6 targets, those schools that match who you are, that should be the bulk of your list. And then 2 to 3 likelies. That means that you'll have likely schools and target schools that will offer some scholarship money. And what I always tell students is that I want you to be admitted to more schools than those that deny you. And the students who follow this balanced college list often admitted to 6 to 8 schools, and they have a great list of options in the spring with scholarships to choose from. So I think the balance of the list is very important. Those who kind of upend the balance typically have more denials than admits. And so, we want this to be a positive experience for you. So I think that's a great ultimate goal for you guys to have. And we are going to bounce this back over to B, who's going to tell you even more exciting stuff than what I just told you.
All right, no, that was very exciting stuff. And one final thing to note about the balance of your list and the benefit of likely schools, right? And Breanne kind of touched on this, is that if you're just a rock star and you have a 3.9 unweighted GPA, 4.5 weighted GPA, and you're looking at likely schools, keep in mind that likely schools are the ones that might want to give you some more money because you are just going to be a rock star on campus, because your profile might be way above average, way higher than the average student getting in, and that might entice them to offer you some more money, right? So keep that in mind as you're thinking of financial fit, is the benefit of choosing more likely schools for the possibility of more scholarship money too.
I popped on my videos so I could add something to that. I know we need to keep moving, but I mentioned before that there was no evidence that applying to the more selective schools and the fancier prestigious names meant that you're more successful. And that's true. There have been studies, they do not bear out. But there's also been studies on students going to schools that are considered more likely schools where their academic profile is higher. And the students who tend to go to those schools and get involved in those schools tend to have more research opportunities, tend to have better GPAs, tend to be in honors programs, and tend to also have better admit rates to grad programs and internships. So I'm not saying to only go to a likely school, but if we're looking at strategy, actually applying to really strong, good fit likely schools and making that a good portion of your list is a really smart strategy financially and for your academic and professional success. Okay, I'll let you talk.
100% agree. I meet with a lot of students who want to become doctors, physicians, oncologists, whatever it may be. I have a lot of students who want to go to law school. And if you're going to pursue graduate education professional degrees, your college GPA is a major factor in your admissibility into these higher degrees, right? So keep that in mind as you're strategizing for your list, but let's go ahead and keep moving to get you all out of here on time. This number is a big number, 3,982 degree granting institutions, post-secondary institutions in this country, right? 2,679 of those are 4-year universities. This number has changed a little bit. This was from a couple years ago. But this is just to remind you that there are so many awesome institutions in this country that are on the table for your child. So we hope that this encourages you to widen that lens a little bit and encourage your student to look, like really look into the schools that are out there to make the best possible fit decision for them as they're building their college list. So how do you look? You're like, okay, well, there are thousands of colleges. How do I know where to start, right? You can't just start on Google. We can't rely on Google for everything. Not everything is reliable. So we are going to share some resources with you, of course, after today. And one of those are a bunch of different search engines that you can use that we consider to be reliable. They pull from reliable data sources, and we trust the information that they're sharing. And these are some of those websites where you can begin the process with your student of looking for colleges based on their personal needs and wants, right? Their wish list for their college. At the very top, you're going to find californiacolleges.edu. Again, that's the website and the platform that I was telling you about earlier tonight that the district paid for. So we put some money into this, so please take advantage of it. All students in our district have access to creating this account. And in high school, in middle school, I believe as well, they can log in and begin the process of assessing their interests and their personality and their strengths and their values. And then they can take that into researching majors and then researching colleges and learning about their admit stats and all of that other kind of stuff that Breanne was talking about, social fit, financial fit, this is all housed in California colleges. And the search engine for colleges includes all colleges and universities across the country. So I know it's called California Colleges, but the search engine itself does include colleges nationwide, and students can actually build a college list within the platform. So please take advantage of that. So let's talk about your role as a parent, guardian, adult in the life of these students. So just a reminder, right? You are all here advocating for your students because you care about them and you want the best for them. And I know that that's why we're all here, but we're going to resist the temptation and the urge to hover and to be a helicopter adult, parent, guardian. Okay. We're not here to dominate and to, tell students what to do, to dictate what they are supposed to do. We are here to support them. So just a couple things for you to remember as you support your student throughout this really important process, right? This is a team effort. You're not alone in this. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that you are not solely responsible for getting your student into college, for making sure that everything is going to be perfectly lined up for them. There is a team involved. Futureology exists for this reason, right? We are a team of 4 counselors, but we're doing everything we can to provide programming at your school sites to provide support to your students while they're at school and after school. You have amazing school counselors available to you as well. You have experts like Breanne to take advantage of as well, right? And there are resources that we can point you to, but you are not in this alone. But we also want you to remember that, and we also want you to remember that this is your child's journey. So again, we're not going to take over. We're not going to take that mouse out of their hand, on the computer and start clicking on things and creating a college list and writing an outline for a college essay, because this is their journey. And so our role as the adults in their lives is to provide them with information and the resources, just like we're providing it to you tonight, and point them in the right direction, right? So this is what we're doing. We're here to kind of help usher them into this, these next kind of stages as they're moving along throughout high school. Please communicate regularly, communicate to the educators in your students' lives, talk to teachers, talk to your counselors, talk to the Futureology team to make sure that you're on the same page. If you have any questions, ask them early and often, so that you're not confused at the very end of this process, senior year, right? Define your limits early. If there are financial limits at home, and it might be impossible for you to pay for college, these are things and conversations that we should be having early on with students so that they can set their expectations as well as to where they should be applying, or what their college journey might look like, and if that might start at a community college and then transferring, because that would be free for 2 years. By the way, we have a webinar on that in November, which I hope that you'll attend. But define the limits early so that there are no disappointments. A lot of our students will end up applying to, pretty pricey private schools, because that was never communicated to them that, $40,000, $50,000 a year would not be possible as a family, right? So we're going to define those limits early to students, just so that they're aware as well. And we're going to plan financially as best as we can. Again, webinar coming up October 19th on understanding the cost of college. I encourage you to go to that, so that you can do anything that you can as a family to prepare for the cost of college, right? Get your information from reliable data sources. Those links that we're going to share with you later on tonight are going to be a perfect start to that, is using those resources instead of going straight to Google or Reddit or whatever it is that College Confidential, right? Whatever it is that you might be looking at. And of course, partner with educators. That falls under communication. We are here as well to support your students. Futureology certainly is here. And, our goal is to make sure that this journey for you is not painful and that your students have the support that they need at school. So these are some tools and resources that you'll have access to. We are going to share a QR code for a folder of all of this information, including the entire presentation from tonight. And I'll be sharing that with you in just a second. Okay, so just keep these in mind as resources that you can refer to later on. We're going to go over an action plan quickly, okay? And you can look at this later. For middle school families, we don't have any in here with us tonight, but that really is the process of developing study skills and learning about A through G requirements, which will become a factor in high school, like Breanne mentioned earlier. They're the courses students have to take to be eligible to apply to the Cal States and UCs. And by following these requirements, they also make themselves competitive and eligible for a ton of universities and colleges across the country. And this is a great time to identify interests as well and begin the process of self-assessment, which then carries into ninth grade. It's a lot of the same thing. It's adjusting to high school, making sure that those study skills are on point and, dialed in, getting tutoring in place if necessary, and beginning the process of exploring. And that can all be done actually in californiacolleges.edu. So please take advantage of that for especially any of our high school families. And if you want instructions on how to create that account, reach out to us and we can send you a quick handout on that as well. But pursue hobbies and interests, start developing that strong academic foundation, because how you do ninth grade determines your courses for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So this really is establishing that foundation for the rest of high school. So it's a very pivotal, important year academically for our students as they think about college planning as well. And then going into summer, we're going to start thinking about fun things to do to pursue those interests and passions that they might have been developing and honing throughout middle school going into the first year of high school. 10th grade looks a lot like ninth grade. Maybe this year we're challenging ourselves with some more honors AP courses because rigor is important. In the college admissions process, most institutions are looking, like Breanne mentioned earlier, at courses and rigor of your courses. So challenge yourself to your level of comfort and playing to your strengths and interests. This is maybe the time that we're looking at mock testing as well, and possibly exploring a career technical education course through CCA, which carries again into 11th grade, right? More of the same, making sure you're taking those A through G approved courses, challenging yourself with AP, honors, IB courses, taking CCA courses to demonstrate that interest in a particular field, career, what have you, okay? These are great ways to show admissions representatives that you are doing the work and walking the walk by taking courses that align with your interest, okay? And then of course, towards the summer and towards the end of the year, we're building college lists. We're doing this best fit work in earnest. This is when we're doing it, is at the end of 11th grade. We are beginning to talk about college essays and drafting essays by summer, okay? So for my junior families in here, we're gonna have a lot of support in that regard coming into spring. So keep your eyes peeled from the Futureology team, because we will be supporting your juniors a lot come second semester. And then of course, planning for summer and making sure that you're enriching yourself over the summer as well. And then by 12th grade, we're applying to colleges. We're using californiacolleges.edu to launch your UC, Cal State, and financial aid applications so that your school can help monitor your application process, right? And we're continuing on with the rigor of our high school courses, with our clubs. We're applying for financial aid, which opened on October 1st. So all of you should have that on your radar, okay? And if you have any questions about that, you can always email our team or your school counselors. And of course, meet with somebody from our team. We meet with students throughout the entire year, 11th and 12th grade students in the fall, 9th through 12th grade students in the spring, to help you with this planning process. So regular actions you should be engaging in is meeting with a counselor regularly, talking to your school counselor, talking to a futurology counselor, auditing your students' courses and grades to make sure that courses were passed, right? That we're meeting those A through G requirements, talking to your counselor if you have questions about that. Because sometimes parents are surprised that their student, didn't pass a course or got a D and have to retake it, because for A through G requirements, you need a C or higher to meet those A through G requirements. It's not pass the class, it's pass the class with a C or higher to meet those eligibility requirements. And so it's important to audit the grades every semester to make sure that if there is a course that needs to be retaken, that you jump on that for that following summer. And we're going to be tracking our activities and awards, maybe keeping a spreadsheet or a document tracking all of your students' activities. And this should be on them, not on you. So you tell them to do this and it's on them to do it. We don't want to do this work for them, okay? But this is some of the stuff that they can do to make their lives easier come senior year. I linked to a really popular webinar that we did a couple years ago on tracking activities and awards. So watch that. Junior families, this is really good for you. Senior families as well. So finally, we're at 7:05. I'm going to get us out of here soon, I promise, and we're going to hang back for questions. How can we help? Futureology provides personalized support to you, but we also provide a ton of support on campus. We're lucky enough to be on campus this year a lot. I'm at Aliso Niguel High School full-time, for example, and we are providing workshops, after-school workshops, lunchtime workshops for your students to try to hit up as many students as possible at once. So please take advantage of that. Information on that goes out in your guidance newsletters typically, that go out every week for a lot of our high schools. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. We're available for you in the evenings because we know that parents want to join in on this conversation as well. So all of us are available some evenings throughout the week, and we are here to support you. Please join us for these upcoming webinars. They are going to be good. Understanding the cost of college is coming up in a couple of weeks, and then the college transfer pathway for those of you who are interested in learning about what it is to transfer to a university from a community college, learning about the transfer admission guarantee program, which would guarantee your student admission into one of the UC campuses. 6 of the 9 participate in tagging is what it's called, the guarantee. So you're going to learn about this, that in this presentation. So that's going to be a great one for you to look out for as well. And of course, to register for any of these events, go to our website, which you will have access to when I share the resources with you right now. So please scan the QR code. This will take you to a Google folder with probably way more documents and resources than you wish or care to look at, but we really wanted to include everything. And we did include tonight's presentation in this folder. So I'm going to give you a second to grab your phones to access this. And while you're doing that, I'm going to put a link in the chat box for those of you who can't scan the QR code, okay? Because I understand some of you might not be able to. Chat box right now so that you can access the resource folder for tonight, which includes everything that you need. Okay. And this is a link for tonight's presentation if you want that directly. Coming in hot in the chat box for you. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry that my audio went out. Is it better now? Okay. I had to shout for a little bit. So I just shared some links with you in the chat box. Please check that out. I shared tonight's presentation with you as well as the resource folder for tonight. And with that, we are going to wrap up with questions from you. So we'll hang back for a little bit. Please feel free to pop your questions in the Q&A. Please email Breanne, email us. If you have any questions, we are happy to help you. And if you don't have any questions, you're welcome to log off and enjoy your Wednesday evening. This does conclude our breakout sessions for College Fair. If you were at the fair and went to some of the events, thank you for sticking through this with all of us. We so appreciate you, and we hope that this was helpful. Breanne, thank you so much for joining us as always. We love having you. And have a great night, everybody. We'll hang back for questions.
I do see there's one in chat for the CCA classes. What are the CCA classes?
Oh, yes. So CCA stands for College and Career Advantage, and they are our district's career and technical education courses. You might know them as ROP courses. That's what they were when I was in high school. They are very different from ROP courses of yore, okay? They are not, you know, simply kind of for students who want to enter into a trade after high school. I think my audio is kind of bad right now. But our CCA courses are A through G approved. A lot of them are honors and AP level. So check out the CCA courses. Talk to your counselors about that at your school. Registration is closed for this year. So we're now thinking about CCA courses for the following school year, and registration for CCA courses will open up in the spring, and you'll be notified of that. But we have engineering or robotics courses, architecture courses, medical assisting, dental assisting, vet tech. We have pharmacy clerk. We have fire science. We have EMT. We have fashion design. I could go on and on. I'm a huge advocate of CCA, so please consider that for your child's schedule. There are after-school classes as well as during bell schedule classes.
They're also a good way to show that love of learning, right? Like we talked about that before, going after passions and interests and love of learning. CCA is a great way to do that. You don't have to take those courses to graduate, but what a great way to show a college, that you pursued an interest, even if you aren't going to apply to fire science, but maybe you took a class around it because it was something you were really excited about. So I think it's a good way to do that too. There is a question in the Q&A that's been hanging out for a few minutes that says the A through G courses are only applicable to California colleges? If we plan to go out of state, do these matter?
Yeah, so A through G courses, correct. A through G requirements are
for the Cal States and UCs, technically, right? So A through G requirements are not required for out-of-state or private schools. You will want to research what the admission requirements are for the schools that you're looking into. All universities and colleges are different, right? Outside of the UC and Cal State system, you'll find that some colleges require even more years of a foreign language, possibly, right? Or more years of math. And so it's important that you're looking at the admission criteria for high school students for each of the schools that you're interested in.
What I can tell you is that California does a really good job with having a great rigorous foundation. So for the most part, if you're following the A through G requirements in order to graduate from a California high school, you're going to hit most basic requirements for every college in the US. For the most part, you're going to hit those. So if you follow your A through Gs, it's actually a really great way to be college ready, not just for UCs and Cal States, but even out of state, because they'll have very similars. The UCs and Cal States are actually usually a little more strict or a little tougher on their requirements than even some other out of state schools. So if you hit those, it's probably good with out of states.
Absolutely. Good questions, everybody. If you don't have any questions, you're welcome to log out. I know it's like hump day and you're probably all tired of us. We've been presenting and doing things all week, right? But please don't be shy. Throw in your questions if you do have any. We'll hang back for maybe another 3 to 5 minutes, and then we will close out for the evening.
Now's where we should have just like coffee talk.
Yeah.
Like, what was your experience doing admissions? I can tell you to not do what I did, which was I picked pretty posters on the wall of my college and career office in my high school and applied to those. Not a good way to.
No, that's what a lot of people do. So
are there any CCA classes over the summer? There are, Kristen, yes. It changes every year. Sometimes we'll have like administration of justice for kids interested in law or law enforcement. We've had emergency medical responder, which is the first responder course taught by our EMT teacher. We have, I don't know what other courses we've offered, but yes, there are usually a handful of courses offered over the summer. And again, information for that will come out probably around, I'm going to say close to May for summer courses. So
keep that on your radar. And let me put the CCA website in the chat box for you. And yes, Claudia, this presentation will absolutely be posted on YouTube. We post everything on YouTube. So please subscribe, like, and follow to be updated on all of our videos. I'm going to put in the CCA website for you right now. Just find it. I'll put that in the chat for everybody. Here we go. CCA website for all. There you go. Okay, friends. So it doesn't look like we have
many more questions. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, one more question. Can you take classes of interest at Saddleback in high school as well? 100%. Breanne mentioned this, touched on this, right? This is an excellent way to demonstrate interest, passions, play to a strength that you have academically. But high school students can take Saddleback IVC courses for free. And you can do that during the school year if you're ambitious or over the summer. You can absolutely do that. And that can really help in the admissions process as well, because it demonstrates rigor. It demonstrates your curiosity, your intellectual curiosity, right? So strongly recommend that. but take them seriously because these courses go on your permanent college transcript. So students should not be, you know, phoning it in when they sign up for these courses because it does end up on your permanent college transcript, right? So we're aiming for A's and B's in these classes, definitely. Great question. Okay, for real this time, my friends, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. So we're all going to get the boot at the same time. So thank you so much, parents and guardians and families. Breanne, thank you so much. Nicole, thank you for handling the Q&A. Everybody have a wonderful evening. We wish you all the best of luck going into the rest of this semester, and we will be here to support you. Have a good night.